Alright guys, so let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to start with is the intro synths, and I'm actually going to start by making this first locator, calling this intro 1.1. I always forget, but I always have to remind myself to stay organized right from the go, because it'll make making the song that much easier. Speaking of organization, let's take this first MIDI track and we're going to hit Command G to make it in a group, and we are going to label this group synths. And then I'm going to right click on the group and go select my color, which is going to be this pink. And this is just what I like to make the synths. And then I'm going to go into my plugins and add a serum. And we're going to call this ARP. And we'll make it the same color. And the reason I grouped this and set the color is just from now on, whenever you make a new MIDI track under the group, it'll all be the same color. And that helps so much. Like once you get to like 80 tracks in your whole song and they're all different colors and they're not named, it's such a hassle to go back and name all that, especially when you're like in a creative rhythm. So I like to just do this from the start because it really just helps you out. We are going to load up our first ARP. And we are going to load up ARP drop dead. So then we are going to go into our project and go to our MIDI. And this is the ARP MIDI that we're going to be using. So let's zoom out, and this is what it should sound like. So this is a really sick ARP. So basically what it's doing is this ARP is controlling the top note, and then this pattern is controlling the bass note down here. So I really like kind of reaching for these ARPs just to start out with, just because they're perfect for writing intros. Like that's already a great start right there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to process this a little bit. So I'm going to throw an EQ on because there's a lot of sub bass in here, and I don't want that sub bass in here. So I'm going to throw a low cut on, and I'm going to drag it up to around like 150, somewhere around there. So now we should... And the reason I don't want that sub bass is because for the second part of the intro, there's going to be like a lot of sub bass and heavy drums. So I want to create that contrast. So when the bass does come in, it comes in like really hard. All right, the next thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add a limiter. And this is almost going to act like a hard compressor, and it's just going to chop the peaks off kind of and make sure that we're using as much space or as little space as possible. So you can see the little bit of gain reduction there, and that's just like, you know, it's kind of acting like a compressor, but it's just chopping those peaks off. And then after that, we're going to add an auto filter, and we are going to filter this up for the first half. So now that we're working in this first 8 bars, I'm going to go ahead and make another locator, intro 1.2, and I'm going to be making locators throughout. I might as well just make the next one. Intro 1.3. It just makes it really easy to see, especially when you're zoomed out. Instead of counting, you just know where each set of 8 bars is. So I'm going to make a point here and a point here, and I'm going to drag this down. So now we should have... So I'm going to set this first point at like 480, something like there. And the second point will be all the way up. And I'm going to hold Option and hover over the line we just made, and I'm going to drag down to curve it. All right, so that is it for our ARP. So let's move on to the heavy guitars. So I am going to hit Command T to make a new audio track, and we're going to label this guitar heavy. And I'm going to search for the guitar loop that we have, and it is in our project. So I'm going to drag this right here in between bar 9 and bar 17. So let's listen to that. So we got a cool little guitar loop there. So at this time, I'm going to make my first routing because I don't feel like going back and doing this all at the end. So I'm going to hit Command T to make a new audio track outside of our synth group. And I'm going to label this sidechain. All right. And I'm going to recolor that white. And this is going to be the hub. This is going to be where every sound goes that needs to get sidechained. So I used to put my sidechains on every group, but I found it's a lot easier to make a track like this, call it sidechain, and route everything that I want sidechain to this group. Therefore, you only need one sidechain or one group of sidechains in your entire track. And I used to put sidechains on every group, and then if I wanted to change it, I have to go in and change every one. This just it makes it nice and easy to look at. So for this sidechain group, we're going to select in. And if you cannot see this view, it is because your in and out button is not enabled. So down here in this right corner, we're going to want to make sure this is highlighted. And we are going to make sure this is saying in. And right now it's all gray because nothing is routed to this bus. But we're going to go ahead and do that with the heavy guitar. So right here where it says group, we're going to drop down and select sidechain. And it's important that you put your sidechain at the top because when you want to like route this, you don't want to have to sift through all these tracks. So we are going to click sidechain, and now you can see that this button and this button is turned orange. So now if we listen to this, it's playing the guitar because that's the only thing we have routed. We're going to leave the ARP grouped to the regular group though, and these synths are going to be sent to the master. So what this does is we have routed the guitars from this group to this sidechain bus, and then from the sidechain bus to the master. So it's just like a little pit stop that we're going to sidechain everything there. All right, so let's get into processing this guitar. So we are going to start out with an EQ8, and we are going to select the hard low cut, and we're going to drag up to right around 120. And then we're going to just take this point and we're going to make a little high shelf boost right there. Let's solo that. It just sounds a lot sharper and brighter, and without this EQ, let's turn this off. You can hear and sort of feel that low end rumble, so we're going to cut all that out because we don't need that. And we're just giving this nice little boost to make it sound a little bit cleaner and more high quality. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to open up the saturator, and we are just going to take this from analog clip to wave shaper. You can hear it's getting really quiet, and it's sort of compressing and saturating and just taming the sound. So we're going to make up that gain loss with the drive. So we're going to go to our drive and click on it and just type in 4.7. And it's almost like taming the sound. Like you can kind of hear it when you turn it on and off. It's just slightly quieter, and it just seems to be compressing a little bit. And we're going to turn on soft clip. And again, this is just taming the sound a little bit, and in the end, it's just going to save some space so we can make this song loud as hell. And then after this, we're going to put on an auto filter, and we are going to click on our frequency and go down to here, and we are going to make our first point at intro 1.2 or bar 9, and our second point up at 17th bar. And we're just going to drag this all the way down, and again, hold Option and just curve this up slightly. So let's listen to this. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this, and we are now moving on to intro 1.3. We have everything for intro 1.1 and 1.2, and now it's time to move on to 1.3. So for 1.3, we are going to have this heavy guitar, the auto filter frequency all the way up. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to filter this down at the very end. So for the last bar, so from 24 to 25, we're actually going to filter this down to around here because this is going to set up our build up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another locator right here at 25, and we'll call this build up. So that is going to be the big impact, and we're going to build the song up into the drop. All right, so we got 2 more tracks to add. So I'm going to make a new MIDI track, and I am going to select Serum, and we are going to call this ARP2. This is going to be a quicker ARP. All right, so we're going to open up our preset, and we're going to open up background ARP. And this is just a saw wavetable and this gurgle 2 wavetable, both up 2 octaves, a little bit of detune, and some flanger, OTT, delay, and reverb. So these effects are just really kind of bringing out the pluck and making it more interesting. And this unison and detune. So yeah, really nice pluck. And it's going to do the job just fine. So let's go in and we'll get our MIDI. And we're going to drop this right here. So we should be listening to. So we don't need it there. Let's just delete all this empty space just to eliminate any confusion for when this track is closed. All right, so that is our sound that we're going to do. Let's go in and we're going to process it a little bit. What we're going to do next is we're going to go down to our plugins, and I'm going to go to my audio units, go to X for Records, and we're going to open up this OTT. And this is a free plugin on Xfer's website. But if you don't want to use that, there is something very comparable, which is under the multiband dynamics and audio effects. And you can go to this OTT as well. So we're going to go to OTT and we're going to listen to this. And we're going to drag this depth down to 29 because we don't want it to be that prominent. We just want it to be like a nice layer underneath. So it kind of brings the reverb out and just tames the percussiveness of the pluck. Next effect we're going to add is we're going to throw on an EQ8. And we are going to make one of the sharp low cuts again. And we're going to drag this up to around 150. And we're just going to make sure the Q is down a little bit so it's not such a sharp drop off. And if you're wearing headphones, you can really like hear what this is cutting out. Next we're going to add is a saturator. And we're going to leave everything the same except we're going to boost the drive up by 3. And this is just really sort of beefing up the sound. So you can definitely hear the difference there. And that is all we're going to be doing there, except we're going to route this from group to sidechain. And we're also going to drop this down -9 decibels. So let's listen to everything together. And I actually just bumped that up 2 decibels down to -7 decibels just because I wanted to hear it a little bit more. It just didn't seem like it was standing out enough under the heavy guitar. And then the last track we're going to add is another little pluck. So we're going to go ahead and hit Command-Shift-T to make a new MIDI track. And we are going to open up another Serum. I'm going to load up this Pluck Sinister, which is essentially just a saw wave, not even detuned, and another saw wave an octave higher. So this is +1 octave, this is +2 octave, and the volume is being modulated by LFO1, which is on envelope mode. So when you play this, it's only happening once. Okay, a lot of delay there. So it's only happening once and it's at an 1/8 note rate. And we can go to the effects and there's some down sample going on. And that kind of dirties it up. Let me turn the effects off right now. And then we have a delay that's ping-ponging back and forth, and that feedback is very high. That's why we keep hearing that. And that's all being compressed by an OTT. And then after that, we have a huge reverb at the end. So let's go ahead and we're going to get our MIDI. So sinister pluck. All right, so let's go ahead and start processing this. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to put on another OTT, and we're going to take the depth down to 21%, which is like essentially the dry wet. And it's just bringing everything forward a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and turn on the EQ8. And we're going to make a low cut, a harsh low cut or sharp low cut. We're going to bring it up to around 280, just because there's a lot of low end in this, especially after the OTT. And we don't need any of that because we have this heavy guitar, and we're going to have some basses and different effects and sub going on underneath this. So we really don't need this low end at all. Then we're just going to make a really mellow dip right here around 5K. And that is just going to kind of get rid of some of those harsh highs just a tiny bit. It's very subtle. And then we're going to add a saturator. We're going to change this wave shape from analog clip to soft sine. And we're going to bump the drive up 2 decibels and take the dry wet down to 50. And that's just sort of bringing out everything again and just saturating the sound as a whole. And this is also going to be routed to the side chain. So let's listen to everything we got. All right, so that is it for the intro synths. Next, we're going to go into the intro effects.